In 1838, the mist-covered village of Kempenland in Brabant was a quiet place, haunted by whispers of an ancient curse. For generations, the Angelus bells had kept at bay the legendary werewolven, werewolves, cursed creatures born of dark magic who terrorized the forest surrounding the town. These bells were the town's sacred protection, their chime a barrier between the people and the night. But after a violent storm silenced the bells for the first time in centuries, the werewolf were no longer just a story. For Wibren Anema, a stoic man in his thirties, with a thick raven black beard, long flowing hair and broad shoulders, hardened by years of labor as a woodworker. The storm marked the beginning of a terrifying journey into his family's dark legacy. Haunted by the cryptic tales of his late mother Afke Anema, she had told him, Wibren was about to confront a truth he had long denied. The howls that filled the night air, after the bell's silence, were no mere wolves. They were a warning, a signal that the curse of Kempeland was returning, and Wibren, bound by blood to ancient magic that had once protected the town, would soon learn that there was more to his family's story than he ever imagined. After the bells were struck down, Wibren found himself restless in his small humble home. The storm still raged outside, but inside his mother's old belongings called to him. Afke had passed away years ago, driven to madness by visions and tales of the werewolven. He had dismissed her as paranoid, but now something gnawed at his mind. Among her possessions, Wibren found an old chest, locked and covered in dust. Inside there were letters, some from his father, who had disappeared mysteriously before Wibren was born, and others from unknown sources, speaking of the werewolven, the curse, and the role the Anema family had played in the town's protection. But one letter in particular stood out. It was written in his mother's shaky hand, warning him, the bells are not just metal, my son. They are blood, your blood, our blood. When they fall silent, so does our power. Wibren felt a chill run down his spine. His mother's words had always felt like madness, but now they seemed like prophecy, and the blood she spoke of, it ran through his veins. The next morning, Wibren went to the church to seek answers from Pastor Willem, a man in his late 60s with thinning white hair and a tall gaunt frame. Willem had always been a steady presence in the town, a pillar of calm, rational faith. He wore his age with a sense of quiet authority, his sharp blue eyes often giving the impression that he knew far more than he let on. Pastor, what do you know of the werewolven? Of the curse on the bells? Wibren asked, unable to mask his concern. Willem's expression darkened. He paused for a moment before answering. Some things are better left buried, Wibren, he said in a low voice. The bells will be repaired and all will be well again. But Wibren wasn't convinced. Willem's cryptic words and the flicker of fear in his eyes betrayed him. There was more to this story, more than Willem knew but would not reveal. That night, Wibren was visited by Cornelis, a man of mysterious origin. Cornelis was in his late 40s, with sharp piercing eyes that gleamed with both wisdom and mischief. He had always been an enigma in Kemperland, his reputation as both a trickster and a wise man, keeping people at arm's length. His hair was graying, and he wore a long black coat that gave him the appearance of someone who moved through both the light and the shadows with ease. Wibren, Cornelis greeted, his voice a smooth whisper. The bell's silence is only the beginning. Your family is tied to this curse more than you know. Wiebren frowned. I don't believe in old tales, Cornelis. Cornelis' smile widened. Your mother did. And she wasn't wrong. The werewolven are coming. They want what was taken from them. And you, Wiebren, you're the key to stopping them or to becoming them. Cornelis handed Wiebren a silver talisman, intricately designed and aged with time. This was your father's. It will protect you. For now. The following night, the town was on edge. The bell tower had not yet been repaired, and there were rumors of wild animals attacking livestock. Wiebren decided to investigate the church once more, but as he approached, he was joined by his childhood friend Dirk, the village blacksmith. Dirk was a man of great strength, with a broad chest and arms forged by years of working the forge. His dark brown hair was tied back, and his hands were closed from his trade. He had always been loyal to Wiebren, even when the rest of the village kept a distance from the Anima family. As they entered the bell tower, the temperature seemed to drop. The heavy silence was broken only by the creak of the old wooden steps beneath their feet. Suddenly, a massive shadowy figure lunged at them from the darkness. A werewolf, its eyes glowing a feral yellow. It startled both Wiebren and Dirk. While they both jumped out of the way, standing 2 meters apart facing the creature, they couldn't believe their eyes. There it stood, out of every horror tale they had ever heard, growling and ready to strike them both. They could feel their heart pounding in their chest and neck. As their breath became visible in the cold air, they prepared for the fight ahead, and both focused on what was about to begin. They could feel the adrenaline rush through their bodies as everything started to go in slow motion. Dirk grabbed his smith's hammer that he had extended to be able to hit the metal with much more brute force with both hands, while he took a ready stance as Reuben grabbed a plank laying on the floor. The creature tensed his leg muscles, while it howled to the air, a preparation before he would strike. Wiebren and Dirk looked briefly at each other, remembering the fights they were in as kids. As soon as the creature lunged towards them both, with spread arms with razor-sharp claws, Dirk hit it with his hammer in the face, while Wiebren hit it on the back with his wooden plank. The creature hit Wiebren with the outside of his paw, launching Wiebren through the air against the wooden church benches. It almost took Wiebren out, as he could feel the blow took much of the air out of his lungs. While Wiebren tried to stand, the creature tried to do the same with Dirk. While Dirk took a hit and fell to the ground, the creature ran towards Wiebren. As soon as he tried to cut him with his claws, Dirk hit the creature with his hammer in the ribs. The beast howled out of pain, giving Wiebren a chance to stand up, while he saw a wooden plank with spikes, grabbing it and stabbing the beast. Wiebren and Dirk fought with everything they had. The creature's claws were sharp as blades, tearing through the air as they swung weapons in defense. Dirk's hammer struck the beast, sending it reeling, but not before the creature slashed his arm, drawing blood. Wiebren, clutching the silver talisman Cornelis had given him, pressed it against the werewolf, and with a howl it retreated into the shadows. Breathing heavily, Dirk leaned against the wall, winching at his wound. That was no animal, Wiebren! Wiebren nodded, his heart racing. No, it was something much worse. The next day, Wiebren found himself face to face with Margaretha, the woman who had once been the love of his life. She had left Kempenland years ago, vanishing without a word, but now she had returned, her presence as intoxicating as ever. Margaretha was in her early 30s. Her long auburn hair cascading over her shoulders, her green eyes gleaming with mystery and desire. She was beautiful in a way that seemed to defy time, her skin glowing with an otherworldly radiance that drew Wiebren in. Margaretha smiled as she approached Wiebren in the square village. "I hear the weerwolven have returned," she said, her voice soft, almost teasing. "I thought of you." Wiebren's heart raced, old feelings stirring, but something felt different, dangerous. Margaretha had always been passionate, but now there was a darkness to her, something that both intrigued and terrified him. Their rekindled connection was intense. Margaretha seemed to understand him in a way no one else ever had, and despite the danger, Wiebren found himself drawn to her again. But as they grew closer, Wiebren couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something. As the nights together grew more heated, filled with whispered promises and stolen glances, Dirk, who had always been by Wiebren's side, began to grow distant. Wiebren could see the tension in his old friend's eyes, the way he watched Margaretha with both suspicion and longing. One evening, Margaretha came to Wiebren's home. The firelight cast shadows over her face, making her look even more alluring, her every move slow and deliberate. They embraced, the heat between them undeniable, but as they kissed, Wiebren caught a glimpse of something strange. Her eyes, for just a moment, glowed a familiar yellow. He pulled back. His breath raged. "Margaretha, what are you?" She smiled, her lips curving in a way that sent shivers down his spine. "You'll find out soon enough." The love triangle between Wiebren, Dirk and Margaretha deepened. One stormy night, Dirk confessed his feelings for Margaretha to Wiebren, admitting that he had always loved her, even before she left. Wiebren was torn, caught between the loyalty to his old friend and the undeniable attraction he felt for Margaretha. As tensions rose, so did the danger. Wiebren started to notice subtle changes in Margaretha. Her moods shifted unpredictably, and her presence felt more and more tied to the dark forces surrounding the town. But still, he couldn't resist her. The true twist came when Wiebren found an old letter, hidden in his mother's chest. It revealed that Margaretha's family had once been cursed by the Weerwolven. Her return was no coincidence. She was part of the same curse that haunted his family, sent to either save or destroy him. Wiebren's love for Margaretha and his loyalty to Dirk became a dangerous balancing act, one that threatened to consume them all. Could he trust Margaretha, or was she the very thing he had been fighting against all along? As the situation in the town grew more dire, Wiebren sought the wisdom of Isolde, a mystical figure who lived deep in the forest, far from the reach of the village. Isolde was said to be a forest goddess, a woman with an ageless beauty and knowledge that stretched beyond human understanding. Her silver hair flowed like water, her eyes a deep haunting blue that seemed to see through the very fabric of reality. Wiebren and Dirk ventured into the woods, where the trees grew thicker, the air colder. It was a realm where the time seemed to stand still, where every shadow held a secret. As they entered Isolde's domain, they were greeted by strange lights, flickering in the distance like will-o-wisps, leading them deeper into the unknown. Isolde appeared before them, barefoot and clad, in a flowing gown that shimmered like moonlight. Her presence was both calming and unsettling. She spoke in riddles, her voice soft and melodic, yet carrying the weight of ancient wisdom. "The forest remembers," she said cryptically. "Your family has angered the spirits, Wiebren. You must make amends, or the curse will consume not just you, but all of Kempenland. Isolde revealed that the weerwolven were not mindless beasts, but the embodiment of the forced anger, a force sent to punish those who had wronged the land. Vibran's ancestors had made a pact with the spirits, binding the weerwolven to the bells, but the pact had been broken. Now the force demanded a sacrifice, one that only Vibran could make. Isolde's cryptic guidance left Vibran with a choice: to either offer his own life or to find another way to appease the spirits. But before he could decide, Isolde warned him of a deeper truth. There are 7 brothers, she said. One of them is a werewolf. You must find him before it's too late. This revelation shook Vibran to his core. Was it possible that one of his own kin had been transformed into the very creatures he had been fighting against? And, if so, which brother could it be? As Vibran's journey unfolded, he began to uncover hidden books about ancient Dutch folklore, written in old dialects. Barely able to make out what it said, he looked closer. They were hints of tales, creatures and beings long forgotten, that had haunted the land long before the weerwolven. There were tales of how giants came to Holland and who helped to create the Low Countries, that once walked the earth and long ago left the area with some of their bones buried beneath the hills or hunnebedden, with all types of dwarfs that helped other beings long ago, and who lived deep within the mountains, forging magical tools that could control the elements. Witches and wizards who cast spells to bind the winds and control the tides. Water monsters that lurked beneath the water, on the bottom of rivers, lakes and in the marshes, waiting to drag the unwary to their watery graves. And ghosts who walked the earth, haunted the skies and waters, those protecting old treasures, seeking vengeance for wrong long forgotten, or even fighting old battles over and over again, and those that reminded oath breakers of their promised oath or hidden treasure. The old Frisian kings, the legendary warriors of the Batavians. Wibran's mother Aafke had spoken of these tales and creatures in her madness, in such a fashion that it seemed she may have been there, experiencing them firsthand. But now Wibran began to wonder if her tales were more than just stories. Were these otherworldly beings watching him, waiting to see how his story would end? One night, as he sat alone in his workshop, going through ancient books with many yellow pages, with text written in local dialects, barely able to understand what they were saying, Wibran woke up out of deep thoughts. In the distance, he could make out the sound that was closing to where he was. In shock, he said to himself, the distant sound of hoofs clattering on the cobblestone streets. In shock, he remembered an old legend his mother had told him, the tale of ships that sailed with horseshoes nailed to their masts for good luck. Those who heard the sound of hoofs were said to be visited by spirits, warning them of dangers to come. The sound grew louder, and Wibran felt a chill run down his spine. He whispered to himself, quoting an old proverb, when the hoofs fall silent, the storm begins. As the attacks from the weerwolven grew more frequent, the town's leaders began to act strangely. Wibran noticed that some of the men that were left in the town were cleaning up building parts that were laying in some of the streets. While that wasn't strange at all, he often seen people who had been on their walks at the same hours every day who would be approached by the same men, with sometimes even being led by the mysterious burgemeester Visser, Mayor Visser. With it, after those same people would not be seen again. Wibran seemed more concerned with the possibility that they seemed more occupied with covering the incidents than protecting the townspeople. When Wibran looked closer at those men, cleaning the streets, he noticed that they were burning parts of the rubble of the buildings and even throwing in documents and books. Even when other townspeople tried to talk to Wibren, or anyone who spoke too openly about the werewolfen, they vanished. Even Dirk, who had fought alongside Wibren, began to disappear for long stretches of time, his whereabouts unknown. Wibren grew suspicious. Were the town's leaders hiding something? Had they known about the curse all along? At daybreak, Wibren decided to check out Dirk's blacksmith shop. Dirk wasn't present, and it seemed that he hadn't been there for some time. Wibren thought to himself that the longer that he was in town, the more houses seemed to look empty. He looked further in Dirk's shop. When he didn't look where he was going, he tripped over the carpet. Looking directly at a bookshelf, with a strange plank holder in the closet, he pushed himself up and walked over to the shelf. From above, it wasn't visible. He then took a look while he lay on the floor. He touched the holder and could hear a clicking sound. One of the back walls of the closet had a hidden compartment. He pushed the plank out of the way to see what was behind it, while slowly touching in the space. There seemed to be a whole hidden cabinet. The handle he could touch, he grabbed, taking some sort of a silver stick out. The stick seemed to be sturdy enough and was covered with strange engravings. The deeper Wibren dug, the more he realized that the werewolfen were not the only danger. There were forces within the government working to keep the truth hidden, and Wibren was about to uncover a conspiracy that went far beyond Kemperland. Was the curse just a convenient cover for something darker, something more sinister? And who could Wibren trust in a town where everyone seemed to have secrets of their own? While Wibren was laying in bed in a deep sleep, something woke him up. In the distance, he could hear a howl of a wolf, then multiple howls. Wibren woke up in shock while he asked himself, would this be the final attack? The final battle against the werewolfen? Would it be unlike anything Wibren had ever faced? While Wibren grabbed his clothes and put them on, he ran in the direction of the church. These creatures descended on the village in full force, their howls filling the night's air as they tore through the streets, leaving destruction in their wake. Wibren, armed with the silver staff and the silver talisman and the knowledge he had gained from Isolde, fought with everything. But as the battle raged on, Wibren finally reached the church. He walked as fast as he can to the bell tower, hoping to find it to be fixed. Wibren looked behind him, as he could hear the noises of paws trying to crawl their way in. At the top level, reachable by foot, he climbed the ladder and pulled it up. Making sure he would be safe, he felt a moment of joy as he saw that the monks were able to fix part of the bells. Enough to drive the werewolves back, he said while smiling. With the light of the full moon, he looked for the rope to ring the bells. As soon as he saw it, he noticed a shadow, with two burning yellow eyes. The creature stepped into the light. Wibren noticed part of the black jacket Cornelius had worn many times before. He realized that he would be forced to confront Cornelius once more, with this time Cornelius revealing his true form, a powerful werewolf, driven by vengeance and a desire to reclaim what has been taken from him centuries ago. "You cannot stop this, Wibren," Cornelius growled, his voice distorted by his monstrous form. "The curse is in your blood. It cannot be broken." Wibren's heart pounded as he faced Cornelius, his mind racing. Was Cornelius right? Was he doomed to become what his family had fought against for generations? The talisman in one hand felt heavy, as though it were absorbing the weight of his ancestors' sins. But Wibren refused to give in. The rope was just 2 or 3 meters, out of his reach. It may have been 1,000 meters. It wouldn't have made any difference, Wiebrand thought. Wiebrand could feel the silver staff in his hand glowing, making it feel that he could do anything. He felt his heart in his chest and neck pounding, and felt adrenaline fill his body. He jumped towards the rope, as did Cornelis. While in the air, Cornelis focused on Wiebrand. Before he noticed it, it was already too late, as Wiebrand took a swing with the silver staff in his direction. As soon as the silver touched his skin, he could smell and feel the burning sensation. Wiebrand pushed the silver medallion into the face of Cornelis. Out of pain, Cornelis pushed himself back with so much force he didn't notice the direction he pushed off in, hitting the bell with his paw, not hard enough to ring it. With a roar, he struck Cornelis down, while in an act of final desperation grabbing the rope, ringing the bell one final time. The sound echoed through the village, driving the werewolf back into the forest. But as Cornelis fell, he whispered one last warning. "This is not the end, Wiebrand. You will see." The bells tolled, and the town was saved, for now. But Wiebrand knew that the curse had not been broken. It had only been delayed. And as he stood in the bell tower, looking out over the ruined village, he couldn't help but wonder when the werewolf would return. In the days that followed, many of the men of the village disappeared, leaving Wiebrand to wonder if they had been taken by the werewolven, or if they had become them. Dirk was amongst the missing, his fate unknown. Wiebrand stood at the edge of the forest, the blackened talisman still clutched in his hand. The curse was still with him, a part of his family's bloodline, and though the bells had been repaired, he knew that they would not protect the town forever. As the first light of dawn filtered through the trees, Wiebrand heard it again, the low, mournful howl of a wolf, a reminder that the werewolven were not gone, only waiting. And as he turned to walk back into the village, Wiebrand knew one thing for certain. The werewolven would return, and when they did, he would be ready. But in the distance, beyond the trees and hills, Wiebrand could almost feel the presence of other creatures, watching and waiting for the moment to emerge from the shadows. Giants, dwarves, witches, and water monsters. The old Dutch legends spoke of them, but were they truly gone? Perhaps the werewolven were only the beginning.